And we are recording on Tuesday, May 9th, 2023 at 4:09 p.m. Eastern Time with Dr. Robert Malone and Mr. Ed Dowd. Both of their books, Lies My Government Told Me and died suddenly. Not died suddenly,
Cause
excuse me.
unknown.
Cause
Cause
unknown.
unknown.
I just saw it die
No,
suddenly.
that's the Stu Peters
That's the
broadcast.
movie. So I apologize for that. I just had to, as soon as the words came out of my mouth, I just went, that was not well. This is live. This is what you get for doing live. You play with fire. Cause unknown. That it's in the thumbnail. How did I mess that up? I'm sorry. That's in the description. Both their Twitters are in the description of the website.
It was Freudian.
It was, and I apologize. Dad's now going to cancel out and never invite me to Hawaii. But yeah. So I guess just Mr. Dad to just jump into this immediately, and I think it's what you and I talked about last time. Is ultimately time will either back up or negate everything we've said. Has more data come out to support excess mortality?
Unfortunately, look, I'd like to report good news. I would love to see excess mortality start to trend back towards normal. Unfortunately, it's not. It seems to be hovering around in the group that I follow, which is undeniable. Group life policyholders, it's still running around 23%, is what I'm being told in the real-time numbers. The Society of Actuaries won't report 2020, all of 2022 until August, and they'll update Q1 and Q2 of 23. But we're looking at around 23% excess mortality, which is horrific. 10% is a once in a 200-year flood, and people in this elite group policy life holders, Fortune 500, mid-size, they shouldn't be dying, especially the millennials. So, and then the disability data is another problem. And then we just dropped our vaccine damage report about 6 weeks ago. There's another category that we were trying to identify, and we found it in the data finally. It's called absence data and work time loss data, which is just gone off the rails in 2022. And from the Pfizer clinical trials, we've been able to estimate that 26.6 million people have been vaccine injured, meaning that they're chronically sick. We think it's a compromised immune system that's presenting as illness and absence and work time lost. And work time lost in 2022 went 13 standard deviations above the 20-year trend. That's what we call a black swan event. And disabilities went 4 standard deviations above trend. So, you can see that injuries is a bigger pool of people. Disabled is about 1.36 in the U.S. This is all U.S. numbers. And we've calculated 300,000 excess deaths from the vaccine in 21 and 22, and we think we're low. So those are the numbers. The human cost is around 28 plus million.
Hey, Ed,
yeah.
How do you rule out the variables of the flood of fentanyl, just as one example, and suicide due to economic downturn and other causes such as lockdown?
We don't try to get into that. I mean, so there's a baseline. Fentanyl was already in the baseline in 2019, and drug overdoses. They may have upticked, and also suicides may have upticked. But we're looking at primarily the Europe, UK, Germany, Australia, US. All the numbers have gone up. Especially it started really shifting. The mix shift was from 2020 to 2021. So the explosive excess mortality in young folks really took up in 21. So, lockdowns were going on in 2020, 2021, life started to come back to normal. So it's hard for me to fathom that there was a big rash of suicides, especially in Q3 of 2021 in the millennial group, where we saw the 84% excess mortality in group life people. So it's hard to rule that there was a group suicide pack in the third quarter of 21, which we blame on mandates and hesitant millennials. Millennials knew in 2021 that they weren't going to die from COVID. So they all were lazy, because that's what millennials tend to be, young and healthy. They don't think about getting it, but they were forced to in Q3 of 2021. And that's where we shot up from 30%. They were running around 30% excess mortality and spiked up to 84%. That's what I call the event. So that's the group life people, for me, are the smoking gun. And then we go into the disability data, and that all started taking off in 21. And now we have the injury data. So I'm sure those are part of the numbers, but that's our best guess is 300,000.
Ed,
And we're on the low side.
do you have any opportunity or database that you can query relating to birth rate?
So that isn't, so I've talked to my two experts on the data, Carlos and Yuri. And the problem with birth rates is there are events throughout history that have caused birth rates to explode and then decline, exogenous events. Death tends to stay pretty steady. And that's why we were able to calculate a baseline. The birth baseline is not as easily readily available, and there's noise in it. But what we're going to do over time is the decline in birth rates, if there's a persistency in the trend, then we know we got something. So we're monitoring the persistency in the trend that we have now, which is declining.
So the reason I ask is this is one of the things that was reported during our the testimony in Brussels at the European Parliament last Wednesday. Is there was a European physician scientist reporting that there was a clear 9-month lag followed by an abrupt decline in birth rate through Europe in virtually all nations after the onset of the vaccine campaign. So she was of the opinion that this was a clear-cut cause-effect relationship between the vaccine campaigns and an abrupt decline with a 9-month lag time.
We're not, my guys probably wouldn't disagree with that, but they like to look at the 10 to 20-year baseline, and there's a lot of noise in the baseline. But again, if we see persistency of trend, we'll probably start to publish birth data as well once we get a mathematical relationship with the persistency of the trend, meaning down. And if it stays down, then we know we got something, and then we can then we'll go back and correlate it to the vaccine uptake. That's how my guys are thinking about it right now.
So is there are you having, at one point you were starting to have some cautious inquiries from the industry. And I'm wondering, are they just doing the ostrich thing now and burying the head? Or is there more momentum? Everybody's looking for some shift in momentum. I get this question all the time. Are you seeing anything in the insurance industry?
So there's two things. So Josh Sterling came public several months ago, and he's now organizing on his own a coalition, the Insurance Coalition to Save Lives.
Yes, I'm extremely aware of that.
Yeah, and I think he's having some success in getting people to at least leave the vaccine question on the table. So their focus isn't the vaccine; they're looking at everything. But I think that was a great strategy on his part, because it makes the umbrella as big as possible to get people in, so that they don't feel like they're anti-vaxxers. So there's momentum; it's moving. Obviously, not as fast as you or I would like, but I think so far it's a success. And Josh is reporting more every time he has a meeting. More and more people are logging in, so I think it's slowly spreading, which is good. But that's the best news I have so far. I'm also hearing of there's going to on the law side, there's going to be some clever ways of financing litigation finance.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm particularly aware of.
Yeah, and so there's two prongs: awareness in the insurance industry, and then litigation finance, which is it's kind of like private equity. You pull together resources, you take the best cases, and then you try to make get some rulings in your favor with the best cases. It's kind of like pooling risk, so to speak.
Well put. Yeah, rumor has it they may have some whales already joining in pods.
Yeah, that could be very successful if implemented correctly.
How can you, Mr. Dowd, can you elaborate on the 26.6 million number of vaccine injuries?
Well, here's the funny, I'll give you some inside baseball. Before we went out with the report, our estimate was 13.3, and we now have a team. It's not just the three of us. We have 2 data scientists, another physicist, and 2 editors. One of our data scientists caught an error, and the error was actually to the upside. So we were actually going to be on the low side. It's imputed from the Pfizer and Moderna clinical trials. the ones they tried to hide the data for 75 years. There's enough data in there to model a run rate from just the 2 months of severe adverse events. And on our website, we show how we calculate and come up with the estimate of 26.6 million. Rather than bore your audience and go through the mechanics of it, it's all on financetechnologies.com. Everything we talk that I talk about at a high level is backed up on our website with all the data. So basically, it's imputed from the Pfizer clinical trials. And we didn't talk about it because we didn't understand how it would present, but with the work time loss data from the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the absence data, then you can say you have an injury. Well, how does it manifest? Well, it manifests in absences and work time lost, which exploded in 2022, just off the rails. It was up in 2020, which would be understandable from the confusion, lockdowns, fear, what have you. Went up again in 21, and then it just took off in 22, 13 standard deviations above the 20-year baseline, as reported by the BLS.
Ed, many people are observing a paradoxical labor market deficit. Is this a contributing factor to that, or is it all psychological?
No, so here's the. So we actually put out unrelated to the vaccines. Our day job is economics and trying to start a hedge fund. And in one of our reports, we used our vaccine damage research to say that the unemployment rate, including what we have determined from vaccine damage, is actually lower because the labor pool is smaller. Instead of 3.6, it's 2.6. And we're attributing, it's called shadow unemployment or shadow problems through the disabilities and the work time loss. So you need more. So even though you have employees, you need more because lots are calling in sick because they're missing lots of work. So you need your productivity is way down. So that's why there seems to be this constant need for workers. The ones
so
you
think that is attributable? Those effects are attributable to what appears to be a vaccine effect.
That's our hypothesis. Yes. That's what we're running with in our economic analysis. So, on Wall Street, we don't wait for the authorities to tell us we're right. We come up with the analyst mosaic. This is our hypothesis. And we also think the Federal Reserve, which is looking acutely at employment to determine when inflation is going to come down, is reading it wrong. They got it wrong. Employment's going to stay low despite their crushing of the economy through raising of interest rates because of this vaccine damage, which, if you think about what I've been saying, it's been detrimental to your health to be employed in 21 and 22. So most of the people who got the jab were employed, unfortunately, if versus the whole population, to keep their job, unfortunately. And so the 28 million people we've identified as either dead, disabled, or injured, most of those are in the labor pool. So even though it's only 10% of the population, it's probably a higher percent of the employed population.
Because the mandate says the influence.
Yes. So let's assume for argument's sake, it was 100% of these people are employed. That's 30% of the labor pool that has injury, disability, or died. So that I think is what we're seeing. And anecdotally, we've all experienced degradations in services, restaurants closing earlier. You can't get your car fixed. You name it. It's happening.
Yeah. Or your hotel room cleaned.
Exactly. It's kind of, I'm on record saying several months ago, if this is allowed to continue, we're spiraling towards what I call a glacial Mad Max, where there's just not enough people to do things. They're either sick, disabled, or dead. And the sick portion is much larger, obviously, than the dead. Everyone focuses on the dead. I think when we discovered the vaccine injured and how it manifests in the BLS data, that I actually personally had kind of I've been in this data for a while, and this was about 5-6 weeks ago. I got very depressed for about 5 days because the numbers are so big, and it kind of made me really worry about the future. And Dr. Malone, I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I'd love to be wrong.
Yeah, we have to say that. I agree.
Yeah.
So this potentially has huge political implications, as does the fertility issue, and we have this sudden, abrupt departure, stage left of Rochelle Walensky.
That was very interesting. And I was on Dr. Drew yesterday with Dr. Kelly Victory, who said that apparently it's come out again. I'm just relying on her and what she said, that she was never actually sworn in as CDC director because she didn't sign an affidavit. And she was, the whole time she was serving, she was an advisor.
Walensky,
yeah. But aside from that, so that's odd.
Yeah, well,
But-
technically, Tony Fauci is in a similar category, by the way.
Interesting. But it sounds like some sort of bureaucratic trick, so you don't have to testify for some reason.
Well, it also enables them to boost your salary. Because you can, through being a consultant or advisor, you can get an extra plus up because you're a physician. So they have a strong incentive to not actually join the SES or the civilian corps, because otherwise, if they get in this special category, they could get the physician's supplement, which is non-trivial. That's how Fauci ends up making more than the president.
Well, and in my analysis of the sudden departure on a Friday afternoon, look, I lived on Wall Street, and my job was to read the tea leaves and watch the troop movements in corporations. And if she had done a great job, let's assume that she had done a fabulous job, she would be saying, my job's been accomplished. She would go on all the morning talk shows. She would be the belle of the ball.
And I want to spend more time with my family.
Yeah. Yeah. And now she's just exit stage left. And that to me says it was either a firing or a rut-row moment for her, and she wanted out. Doesn't matter. It's, I think we can claim this as a success, as Bannon likes to say, a successful scalp, so to speak.
What a great
It
phrase.
is a rather abrupt, and I think that the letter from the POTUS was 2 or 3 sentences. Thank you very much for your service letter.
Oh God.
Yeah, no, that's what I go to. One of the things I think everybody should do is, when you hear news, always go to the direct source document. I heard a bunch of stuff, and I went straight to the White House press release, and that's when I knew she was that something not glorious had happened for her.
Yeah, that's the other shoe that we don't know what it is that is dropped, is what would prompt the Biden White House, after all that they've done with her, after all that they've tolerated, to suddenly abruptly cut her loose. And is it, one thing is the specter of this odd rebel candidate called RFK Jr. Weighing heavily on the White House strategists, and Walensky was a liability, or was it that there were data that popped, and some speculate it was the fertility data that had been buried strategically within the CDC, that has started coming out, because there was some antecedent FOIAs that were really quite alarming.
I think you're probably onto it. There's political considerations plus bad news coming at the same time, conspired. I think you're dead spot on. Behind the scenes, your thesis is probably pretty close to the reality.
Yeah, Bobby is a threat. And what I can, because I have some contacts within the campaign now, I think that what the campaign doesn't appreciate, and maybe the right doesn't appreciate, is that he's not only a threat to Biden, but he's a threat to Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely a threat to both. One man mandated after claiming he wasn't going to, the other man still claiming that he saved 100 million lives. Both are not living in reality.
Gently put. I should be so coherent when I'm in my 80s. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, you know what though? My father's 80 and he's as sharp as a tack. On a
So there's
side
hope.
note, the Biden when he was senator rented my dad's house on Nantucket 4 Thanksgivings in a row, and I jokingly said after the Hunter Biden news came out, had we known then what we know now, we would have burned all the bed sheets.
Precisely. and made sure that the trash went to the biohazard waste. Enough said.
Lord.
We're having fun on the Tommy Show.
No, you're fine. No, I'm actually just deeply disgusted. No, that's horrifying.
The pictures. I all I can say is I hope that some of those pictures that have come out about Hunter Biden are doctored.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, let's hope they are, but I'm thinking they might not be.
Yeah, gently put.
Yeah, I don't really think the current administration was, and I could be completely wrong because it's based on nothing, but I don't think they were really anticipating a strong opponent from the left. I think they were probably getting ready for, Trump to come up and take another swing at it. I don't think they were expecting Bobby Kennedy.
Which is very
awesome.
surprising. I mean, so I don't know what Ed has known. I was alerted by Bobby in a New England fundraiser during the summer and sworn to secrecy. And then colleagues that Ed and I both know that have a Maui connection actually visited the farm here and shared with me polling data last fall that and asked my opinion about whether or not he should run. And my answer was, I don't think he has any choice ethically. Given, I mean, to be blunt, I think the operant term now is upside down cloud show. Given what we're seeing right now, if anybody who is in a position to potentially disrupt this clown show almost has a moral obligation to do so.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And, Dr. Malone can keep a secret as well as can I. I was tapped months ago by Bobby to be a co-treasurer on his campaign in the exploratory phase. And then I just announced on Friday that I'm the co-treasurer on his campaign for Democratic nomination for president. And again, I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm with Bobby because he represents truth and integrity. I don't agree with him on every issue, but we don't have a country if we don't have freedom, free speech, and a Bill of Rights and medical autonomy. So every other issue is kind of kicking around sand in the sandbox as far as I'm concerned.
It's luxury. It's a luxury.
High class problems. Those are high class problems. The problems before us are freedom and medical autonomy.
So
everything else.
Do you want to go down this rabbit hole further? Because I'm glad to. As a matter of fact, that was my AM podcast. I got queried about what happened in Boston. Ed, I don't recall, were you there or not?
No, I couldn't make it. I had some obligations that had already pre-planned.
So Tommy, it's your call. It's your podcast.
We'll do whatever. I'm a little upset that I'm the only person here that wasn't confided a secret in about Bobby Kennedy. I'm feeling a little left out, feeling like I got the short straw.
But you just learned that Dr. Malone and I can both keep secrets, which is
I know, which is again kind of bullshit. I would like to be let in on a secret too. I have the professional camera. I have the flag. I think I've proven myself.
Here's my two bitches.
Yeah, go down the rabbit hole. Yeah, let's go.
My two bitches after watching the kickoff speech in Boston. And there was a lot about it that was really positive, a lot that was amazing. As I said on Bannon a couple days later in the PM broadcast, there was a huge overlap between Bobby's positions and Steve's positions and the MAGA positions. A case can be made that Bobby's speech in Boston was a true Make America Great or America First type positioning.
Yeah.
He repeatedly emphasized winding down the military-industrial complex and redirecting both that labor, akin to the Civilian Conservation Corps era, which I've always thought we should be doing. redirecting the labor and the capital to infrastructure build in the United States and pulling back from my phrase, foreign adventures. Well, it's not really my phrase. It's a very ancient American phrase, right? That goes back to the founding. So we absolutely have transgressed in pursuing foreign adventures, as we were warned not to do, in building what we sought to become Imperial America. I don't think anybody can doubt that. And Bobby, Bobby ventured into this in so many ways. The speech kickoff was fascinating. I knew that he was going to hit the kind of traditional 70s ecologic activist themes that he hit, because he had done so at the Heritage Foundation like a few days before, which surprised me that he was emphasizing that part of his CV and not emphasizing the anti-vax issues, the CHD. And in fact, I don't think he used the term vaccine through the whole speech. But he kicked it off by talking about the history of corporatism, really, of public-private partnerships. It's fascinating. Between the British Crown, the British aristocracy, and the East India Company. And he went into detail. It was like 10 minutes of his speech, 5 to 10 minutes. He went into detail of how this the crown and the aristocracy, British aristocracy, owned so much of the East India Company, and they had cooked this scheme that for tea, because recall at the time we had the Boston-based American clipper ship industry, right? The fastest boats in the world were coming out of Boston. And why? Because they were making tons of money by being the first ones to bring this year's tea crop back to the States. That was the race. That was what drove that innovation. And so East India, together with the aristocracy and the crown, cooked a scheme. We're going to tax everybody's tea, but we're going to give tax exempt status to the East India Company. And so suddenly they're going to be able to undercut everybody else on the price of tea in the States, and we're all going to make a stupid amount of money. That was basically the scheme that he goes over. And of course, the consequence was this little thing called the Boston Tea Party. And he uses that to kick off the whole message that ran through his speech of his history of combating corporatism and public-private partnerships, and his knowledge, because of all of his legal actions over time, of these various industries and their nefarious ways, and that he's uniquely qualified to address them, which kind of mirrors the theme that Trump kicked off with at CPAC, which and Bannon espoused, which is Trump is a wartime president. And basically, Trump positioning himself for DeSantis by saying we don't have time to train up a new presidential candidate. We have to go with someone who's seasoned, experienced, a wartime president who knows how to take on the administrative state bureaucracy. And Bobby's basically undercutting that by saying, well, actually, I've got even more. He doesn't say it that way as an anti-Trump message, but he's saying, I've got all this experience. And then you'll recall, he closes the argument by laying out the course of events regarding Ukraine, and how originally we were pitched that this was humanitarian and the poor Ukrainians, and we need to help them because of the evil Putin in his incursion, and it's all humanitarian. And Bobby basically gives a sympathetic ear to that in his pitch. And then he says, but then it evolves, and now very clearly from the Secretary of Defense and the POTUS, the justification is that we want to exhaust Putin. Mm-hmm. We want regime change. And regime change is absolutely not equivalent to humanitarian support. And he makes the point that we were sold on the humanitarian support, it was clear from the outset, which has been Bannon's point from the outset, that this is not in the national interest. And we were basically persuaded to go against the national interest because of the humanitarian cause here. And now we're in a situation in which the reveal has happened, and we find out that that was all he doesn't say it that way, but we find out that, I think the way he nuances it is he says there's been a change in message and focus, and he kind of soft pedals it. He pulls his punch and says, at a minimum, we should have a national dialogue. That's one of the points where I would have liked to see Bobby be personally, my position and that of Jill is much more, you could call it aggressive or strident or unequivocal regarding Ukraine. I think we're way over the line in terms of what we're doing there, the capital that we're shipping. And discredit, Bobby talked about here we're cutting Medicare, Medicaid, and food stamps and everything else. He gave this long talk about a buddy of his who's a disabled veteran who now has to survive on some crazy number, $25 a month in food stamps because they've cut him from $550 or something. I mean, a real horror story. But within that, my other criticism, so I would like to see him come out a lot stronger on Ukraine, but at least he came out. And the other that we were not totally happy with was there was I don't know whether it was intentional or not, but what came across was a theme supporting, let's call it charitably, giving to the poor. And it came, a lot of Bobby's theme is built from the start, Kennedy Democrats, defining what is a Kennedy Democrat, defining that he's wanting to go back to a Democratic Party of his father and his uncle, and the positions taken then. So this is basically pre-Carter. This is the split traces back to that key election where everything just went, with McGovern, where everything went sideways. And he's basically saying we have to go back to our roots as a Democratic Party. The problem with that is there's been a lot of water under the bridge since then. And I think that whatever you think of Ronald Reagan, and in my opinion, Ronald Reagan has improved with age, so to speak, much like Mr. Trump's positions in many ways are improving with age. And Bobby's position of we need to give out more goodies, I'm being a little facetious, to the poor and underprivileged, I think is a little bit too much of a throwback. I think the way it came across was pandering. It's those are my two main criticisms. There was a lot there to like, and a lot positive, and an amazing amount of overlap with what have now become MAGA positions. But there was a clear effort to we could call it subvert or undermine, or a lot of other terms we could use of trying to capture a large fraction of the Democratic base. And he was playing to that, and in such a way that I think he might, if he carries on that line, he may lose conservatives that might otherwise want to join his cause. And I think that that's something that the campaign needs to keep in mind. Not that there's any of us here that have anything to do with the campaign.
He hasn't tapped me yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, look, he doesn't ask me my opinion on how we views issues, but my personal opinion that I don't talk about because it's a waste of time. But Ukraine for me has been a money laundering operation since the color revolution in 2014. There's been pilfering going on by players in the private and government bodies, so to speak, since 2014 when the president then ran out of the country. and then we installed our puppet. So that's just a black hole of money laundering. The whole war, I think, is a lie. Even the humanitarian, it was. I just think it's a pilfering mechanism. That's me. That's my personal opinion. And to what Dr. Malone said about giving goodies to people, we had the Great Society, and that clearly didn't work. And if we do shut down the military-industrial complex and we focus inward on the country and infrastructure, there's a lot of people we're going to need to build. And what I know personally is when people are put to useful endeavors and get community, they tend to be better people. It's when you're isolated, getting paychecks to sit around in your apartment that you tend to create bad habits. So I've found when you're active and you're in community and you're helping and of service, it creates better citizens. When you're sitting around waiting for your government handout, it creates bad habits. That's just my personal opinion. So like I said, I don't agree with Bobby on every issue. But what I do love is he's thrown a wrench into the Democratic Party's works. And
he absolutely has.
And so that's why I'm here. And if he gets the nomination and then it's, Trump and Kennedy, then we'll see what happens then. But I'm looking at this as a two-part campaign, throwing a wrench in the DNC, and then should he get the nomination, then there's a different decision. But I think it's great. I love it. I'm excited to be a part of it.
Congratulations.
I've always been very open about I've supported a lot of what Trump's done, but I can't get behind he still hasn't changed his message on the vaccine. Not excess mortality, not any of this.
Look, here's my personal opinion on the vaccine. Trump, I voted for Trump in his first two terms. Obviously, on this issue, it's kind of it's a wedge issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Trump did a lot of good. He exposed how he was not the candidate of choice in 2016.
Sure.
For the globe as a whole. So I think his best service to the American people, aside from the policies he implemented, was exposing how deep the corruption runs.
1,000%.
I think that's fabulous. I think he's also a deeply flawed man, as we all are. We're all flawed, and I'm not going to. But I think one of his problems is he can't admit he's wrong, and
Yes.
Admitting when you're wrong is key to integrity and truth. And I'm not saying he doesn't have it, but if he wants a shot at winning in 2024, he needs to cop up to the fact of reality and apologize and take ownership, because to blame it on he was fooled and lied to, I'm sorry, the buck stops, you're the president. That's my personal view. That's where I am.
That was actually, that point was underscored quite firmly by Bobby. And that was his take on Trump. It was actually amazingly forgiving and opening. But absolutely, if he was, Bobby's point was that if Trump was rolled by the administrative state, the job of the president is to be able to resist the administrative state. And he amplified that by talking about the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis and his uncle. So he gave a bunch of anecdotal stories from his uncle's time to underscore the point that his uncle bucked the CIA, and a case can be made, paid the ultimate price for doing so. Asserting it's not my fault, they made me do it, is just not valid if you're the POTUS.
Not an answer.
Not an answer. Not acceptable, at least to me.
If you sit there and say they pulled a fast one on me, you're admitting stupidity. If you say they bullied me, you're admitting spinelessness and a lack of testicles. What you can do is say it was a pandemic. I made the decision. It was a faulty decision. I made the least worst decision I can. You could even pull in like drone strikes and be like, we never have 100% certainty, but the buck stops here. You are it goes on your shoulders, for better or worse.
Yeah, so
it goes on your
something
shoulders.
between Harry Truman and Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
Could you imagine Ronald Reagan in the position? You imagine if you swap personalities between Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan. It would be a totally different. I'm not talking about in his last term,
Yeah.
obviously, but maybe that is the analogy. But as you point out, taking personal responsibility, moving forward, not apologizing, and that was supposed to be Trump's brand.
Mm-hmm. I mean, think about Eisenhower with Francis Gary Powers. When he realized that he had been caught lying, he walked into the Oval Office and said, "I'd like to resign," because it was on him. I mean, even JFK, although privately, scolded the CIA for the Bay of Pigs, he never came out and said that was the CIA. There is a level of you. It doesn't happen in any other level of government or business. You can always defer up or down. Part of the thing of wearing the crown is you take that. That is. And if you can't now, and it would be so wildly popular for him to come out and just say, like, yeah, I messed up. He'd be even more impressive.
So supposedly Ron DeSantis has a much bigger war chest than Donald Trump right now.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. And DeSantis is just kind of pulling his jets. That's an interesting thesis, I think.
And this might kind of catch everyone off guard, but neither DeSantis or Trump have tapped me either. So I just want to put it out there. If Bobby Kennedy's listening, I'm very open to, I will 100% work for you. I have a good record. I've been banned from YouTube and Reddit and iTunes. I don't pull punches. I'm there, and I'm well read. I know all about this stuff, man. I'll go down the rabbit hole with you. But no, I'm leaning more towards him, because back to the luxury issues. It's being in first class and wanting Diet Coke instead of Coke, but all 4 engines are on fire and Allah Akbar is being screamed from the cockpit. It's like there are bigger things here, right? So I'm not 1,000% on board with the Great Society.
Interesting metaphor.
But really, right? I mean, we're laundering what? I mean, a sizable fraction of $1 trillion through Ukraine to try to force a new world war. And we have allegedly 26.6 million vaccine injured people. Those are the jet engines on fire. I'm like, put those out. We'll deal with the peanuts later.
Ed is, there's a whole nother side to him that we haven't talked about here, having to do with his analysis of the overall state of the economy and the capital flow and the upcoming impending issues such as Social Security default. And I haven't heard you, Ed, talk about the decline of the petrodollar and the rise of BRICS and what it might mean if we if the world weans itself from the greenback. Is that something you want to touch on?
Yeah, so a couple things. So one of the things that can explain a lot of what you're seeing in the world is the fact that we have 330 trillion in global debt, and it's at the end of a 78-year world reserve currency cycle, and our debt-based fiat currency system is at an end. And so if you can look back at the COVID response that was uniform, and when have you ever seen global governments all spout the same talking points and policies all at once? Never. The answer is never. And I believe part of the reason is that there's a global economic monetary crisis coming, and there needs to be a way to control that. And I thought COVID was one scheme to do that, implement control systems, tracking, all sorts of things. And here we are 2 years after what I call the COVID war, because the Fed and other central banks inflated the system. We're at the end of a great cycle, and the debt is coming due, and we're going to see the central banks, which had the last 14 years unprecedented coordination. It's every man for himself now. And what Dr. Malone just referenced, the BRICS squealing about the dollar, is just that. Now, is that going to mean the dollar's going to zero? No. The way the system's designed is the system implodes, the dollar actually goes up because it's a credit based system. So meaning when the dollar's going lower, that means credit's being created. When the dollar's going higher, credit's being destroyed. So we're in a global deflationary collapse, and the dollar, I think, is going to fail up. The squawking, as much as they squawk, they can't get off the dollar that easily because today, as of last month or a couple months ago, there's 7.5 trillion foreign currency transactions a day. 90% of the other side of the trade is the US dollar. And even though they may want to get off the dollar, they have 15 trillion in dollar denominated debt. China has a lot of dollar debt. So what is concerning about this is they're openly talking about it. They may, in the old days, it would be done behind closed doors, but they are now, with the current president and administration, feel emboldened enough to say this to the press. So my opinion is this: we're going into a deep, deep recession in the fall. That we have bank failures. The money supply M2, which is just let's call it the money supply in general. Its year-over-year growth went negative for the first time since 1930. This is a rare event, and when it does, it's usually associated with banking failures. We got them, and a crisis and a financial panic. So we are looking at a summer of
discontent.
malcontent.
A summer of love.
Yeah, I like the banana Ramazan cruel, cruel summer. So what we have, if you look at what's going on, we have the Hunter Biden situation. That indictment may drop this week. We have Trump just got a verdict against him. We have Title 42 ending in this Thursday. We have Taiwan and China rattling sabers, and we have an economic collapse. So there could be this shock and awe kind of thing happening. Whether it's coincidence or intentional, I don't know, but don't be in fear about it. I mean, life's going to go on. We've had, panics before, and man marched on, and we figured it out. And I do think what's great about what's coming is what's happened has been awful, but what's coming is a realization by many people that they've been duped in many ways, not just financially, but also medically. And I think, truth and integrity is a small trend now, and those people who exhibit it, like Dr. Malone and Bobby Kennedy, are going to be the future leaders of our country. And that's a trend that I think it's nascent, but it's coming, and it's well needed at this point.
That's kind, but just as a caveat, I do not seek public office. I just want to make that explicit.
No, but
you're running. You're running.
A leader, a mentor, however you want to manifest that, you speak truth and integrity. So
don't back down, Ed. You're running, Dr. Malone. Double down, triple down. Don't back off.
Ed is the one, just so we're clear, Ed and some of his colleagues, Tom and others, that we'll just give first names, created this thing called Malone Doctrine and then presented to me. And I was gobsmacked by it, but it's basically an argument for a system of integrity and validation of integrity by vertical as a way to facilitate business transactions. So basically a logic of how to create communities that share a common sense of ethics, really. As a core in order to do business with others.
I think
it's a dream at this point. Hopefully it gets, the document is there. Hopefully over time it gets implemented. I founded a firm. We don't have any revenues yet because we've been doing all the vaccine work for free. Once we get a seed partner, we're going to implement the Malone Doctrine. And, it's one of those things that if over time, we hope that if institutions don't implement it, we just don't deal with them. But that's a dream right now.
Well, they've already set the precedent for vaccine mandates. You could just make doctrine mandates. Or we've already set the precedent of there is no more autonomy. To just circle back real quick, everything you mentioned about basically the world going to shit is in the 78-year reserve dollar or dollar reserve currency status. You got to start wondering if that is the point of trying to exhaust Putin so that he has to pair up with China, make China look bad as they gear up for Taiwan. We will conveniently find out that COVID's Chinese, and we are setting up a new we are either setting up Cold War II or World War III. Man, if I was the existing hegemon losing reserve status, but still had a military of fictional proportion, this is exactly what I would do. Screw the checkbooks. Just wipe them out.
Well, so my friend Tim Wood, he's a cycles analyst, and he's looked at some great data going back to the 1800s, and he measures economic cycles via commodities, because all money really is a claim on actual real resources. There's been 6 grand economic cycles, and if you look at them, during deflations, there's bank failures. So bankers hate deflation. That's the death of a banker, because credit's being destroyed and their Ponzi scheme unravels. And then there's a war, and the war reinflates. So we had the Civil War, that reinflated. Then we had deflation. Then we had World War I, that inflated. Then we had deflation after 1930, and then we had World War II. And we've been able to avoid big wars, primarily because the Federal Reserve was formed in 1913. Then the US dollar got world reserve currency status in 44. Then they delinked it from gold in 71. So again, we've had this kind of 78-year hegemony from the US, and what our power comes from our ability to expand our credit creation overseas. So the reason why we're at the end of this is the dollar-based fiat system is in all corners of the globe, and it needs constant growth. Growth is key. It's not the actual supply of money, it's the growth. And the growth is now negative. So that's why we haven't seen a money supply go negative year-over-year growth since 1930, is because of our world reserve currency status. So it's been 78 years. It's been a 78-year run, and it's over. And so if you're a banker and you don't like it, deflation, and that's where we're headed right now, what comes next? And I gave a presentation a few weeks ago at the American Freedom Alliance, and I predicted war and a central bank digital currency. War is their way out. Now, whether they sit in a room smoking cigars and plan it, or it's just
a natural cycle
of the system, because in deflation, it's every man for himself, and those in power don't want their people to depose them, so they find boogeymen in their neighbors.
Yeah.
So another one of the things that Bobby said was that our whole Middle East strategy has now officially collapsed. That the investments that we've made over decades, particularly in Saudi Arabia as our surrogate in the region, the Saudis are now basically telling us to go pound sand, despite
Correct.
trillions of dollars that we've dropped into them. And that whole strategic region logic that we have created over decades with massive investment is now in complete shambles. Bobby laid this directly at the door of the Biden administration.
Correct. And, we spent trillions of dollars in treasure that should have been invested in our country. And in 71, when we delinked the dollar from gold and introduced the petrodollar, the implicit guarantee to Saudi Arabia and others was, we will defend you and you don't have to spend any money on your military. And now Saudi Arabia feels emboldened enough to say, well, that's over. And there it is.
Yep.
Yeah. And
which has implications about the ability to manipulate petro prices prior to the next election, which has been one of the wagging tails of the dog in the past, I think.
Correct.
Yeah. And we're still sitting on the biggest military. And yeah, whether it's guys smoking cigars in a room, I think the author Andrew Cockburn said in his book, I don't remember, might have been Kill Chain, but he basically talked about how the military industrial complex, it's kind of like the Turing test. Whether or not it is sentient, and obviously it's not, it's just a machine. There might be some supercomputer somewhere. Whether or not, it still has the same effect in that the way it acts, and it lays out the last century of approaching peace, and it starts to, if he paints it as like an organism, it starts to lash out, and it starts to redirect like nutrients, like ATP and oxygen.
How do you square that with the rise of like, for instance, there's an estimate that it's going to cost billions of dollars for the US military to do all the transgender surgeries that are anticipated. All of the kind of woke social agenda that's now being pushed through the DoD is, you know, the one version of that storyline is that there's an intentional effort to weaken the military through promotion of these social strategies. You know, I can't see how. I know here in the South, traditional families that have been the backbone of the U.S. military for decades are pretty much sick and tired and done with the modern military and these initiatives that have been so pushed so hard by the Biden administration, having to do with transgender and social equity, or whatever euphemism you want to call it. A lot of those families are saying basically hell no, and we can see that in the recruitment data. I mean, do we really have, what I'm challenging you on is, yeah, we may have cool toys, but do we have dedicated staffing?
I think
I will, let me interject here.
Sure.
After I put out the vaccine damage report, Lieutenant Colonel Teresa Long called me to literally say she's seeing exactly that. So between the woke agenda that's causing recruitment numbers to fall, the dead soldiers, the disabled, and the injured, her prediction is we don't have a standing army in 5 years. And you got to remember, for every pilot that flies a fighter jet, there's 9 support people, everybody behind them. So what Dr. Malone just said is key. And I don't know if he agrees with her assessment. I tend, you know, if these numbers keep running the way they're running, I tend to agree with her assessment. We're just not going to be able to fly the planes.
Yeah. If I had to give an answer, not that I 1,000% believe this, but if I had to break out the old college bullshit, that I have no idea what the answer is, but I'm going to try to get the extra credit anyway. I would argue that we are probably approaching more mature automation. I mean, the new B-21 Raider, which is replacing the B-2 stealth bomber, is half autonomous.
And the drones.
Yep. Well, the PCA, the penetrating counter air, which is going to be the 6th generation fighter, replacing the F-22, is half autonomous. But all this means is it's autonomous, and they're just saying that it's half because that's more socially palatable. I would say we're moving towards more autonomy, and then I would also say you can immediately change around military perception and nationalism with a giant attack. It's always been that way. You can throw everything out the window. You can have
Absolutely. That's the wild card.
Well, it is.
You know, the only way to really sell people on consistent inflation has always been war. It's the only narrative that people will buy, because with proper propaganda, there's a crisis and an enemy, and people will rally around it. That's how we've inflated our way out of all these things, is through war.
Well, I mean, read the PNAC, Project for a New American Century, absent a new Pearl Harbor or a cataclysmic event in downtown Manhattan.
I did read that you can't make that stuff up.
No, and does that mean the CIA did it? Does that mean that we knew it was coming and we let it happen? I don't know. I genuinely don't. But the reality is you can go from bumbling George Bush and the hanging Chads, and he shouldn't be the president, to like, what, 91% approval as he's standing on the rubble.
Yeah.
It's a human emotion that pulls us all in. And whether or not it's valid, whether or not it's real, if there's an attack, or if there's Ukraine, people cared about it for so long before it was like, all right, whatever. If there's something happens here, you're going to have a lot of people immediately forget the rainbow flag and go, I'm fighting for this country. And they might not even be wrong to do that.
I absolutely agree. And look, I firmly believe there are people who understand human psychology very deeply,
Yes.
and these are the emotions that they use to move whole populations in one direction.
Yeah, psychological warfare isn't
that was the most powerful of the talks in what went down last Wednesday in Brussels. We had a guy who practices basically using psyops in his profession, but he does it to assist people that are refractory in overcoming addictions of various types, porn or whatever. And he uses all of these PsyOps technologies and gave us some amazing videos of how easy it is to program people by things like repetitive mention and using kind of clang association, dropping words or phrases or concepts that cause people to think in certain directions. And it is profoundly amazing how effective that can be. And he as somebody who practices this routinely, his point was that we have seen a definitive example of the use of this technology deployed against a civilian population. Did we just lose Ed?
Yeah, he dropped out. He should be back. This happens. This happens every once in a while. Keep going, Dr. Malone.
Especially from Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you know, Tommy, I've been talking about the PsyOps and the Psy War quite a bit lately. Of course, the Bregans have now asserted that I'm actually the Psy warrior, and I'm busy performing PsyOps on everybody else through those lectures. But I've had people that were retired mil that were in PsyOps units or working closely with PsyOps units come up to me. And one of the fascinating threads that's come out of this was, come up to me and say, hell yes, I'm so glad you're talking about it, basically paraphrasing.
Mm-hmm.
One of them came up to me and said, look, what's happened was that we were up against during Cold War, one of the most, arguably the most highly developed Psy-war capability in the history of man, that being the Russians or USSR. And we had to develop a counter capability in order to operate in that theater with those people. And having done that, having created that infrastructure, those personnel, those military units like the one in Fort Bragg, then something had to be done with them after, we didn't get a peace dividend, right? What we did was we pivoted to the Middle East. And so those units were then, and capabilities and assets and training were used to target the Middle East. And then, we failed in Syria, we failed in Afghanistan, we really failed in Iraq. And those units persisted, and they had to be deployed against something else, because this is just the nature of bureaucratic imperatives. And that they had taken this, the government had, and the DOD had these assets, they had to have them do something, and they deployed them in this whole of military response against the civilian population of the United States over the last 3 years. And that, as far as he was concerned, was the biggest sin, that those units should have been decommissioned after the Cold War was over, and instead they've been allowed to persist. And it was absolutely no surprise to him that eventually they were deployed against the civilian population, because that was all that was left. Now we're still missing Ed.
Yeah, he should come back any second. But about psychological warfare, I mean, look what we've seen. Look at the ironies we've seen just in the last couple of years. Donald Trump's evil because he's going to send us to World War III, and he's a Nazi. It is not a dramatic exaggeration to say that we are currently funding Nazi battalions and pushing for World War III. But it doesn't matter, because Orange Man's not in office. None of this matters. And if the average American can be that easily duped, then what else can they dupe us on? How quickly can something happen in World War III, and then you and I are doing a podcast in 2030 going, yeah, I fell for it too. I thought China attacked San Diego.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
so this is the point that goes back to Huxley and before, is that 25% of any population, for whatever reason, is highly resistant to hypnosis and to these kinds of psyops. And the other 75% basically goes all in. They're easily persuaded and controlled, and 25% doesn't get us to a majority. And I want to, on your other point, so we're flying to Belgium, Jill and I, and we're using it on frequent flyer miles. We didn't want to charge the organization. They're struggling for money, and we got some donations, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So we're sitting 3 abreast back in coach. And the guy that sits next to us is someone who has flown to Brussels, he tells us 85 times or so. Well, it turns out what he is a senior NATO contractor, ex-Marine. And he's never heard of me. We start talking a little bit. So we talk about the book, talk about the Substack a little bit. And his comment was, yeah, but Trump tried to make himself a dictator. And that's absolutely his frame of reference, January 6th. Okay. January 6th. And we talked about the SES and the the GS schedule and standard employees and where he stood in all this, and the need for a senior executive service to maintain continuity in the administration of government, because he's all in on that. Totally. And his point of view on Trump unequivocally, I mean, this is an ex-Marine NATO guy, a serious strategist, and very seasoned, flying into Brussels to represent us for NATO. And he's all in that Trump wanted to instill himself as a dictator, and that's what happened in January 6th. All that propaganda about January 6th, and we now know because of thanks to Tucker, was completely successful. Successful in a key part of, if this guy's a representative, a key part of the administrative state. They apparently, if this guy is
on their own people,
if this guy is representative, they truly believe that Trump was, metaphorically the devil, that he was trying to overthrow American democracy in order to instill himself as a dictator. That's the party line, and they believe it still.
So let's take, and I'm just thinking, I'm guessing what happened to Ed is his phone died, and if an iPhone dies, it takes several minutes to get back in, so we might not see him again, or he's been taken out. That too, I don't know. But if we're looking at the ability to take half of the country and make him think that your own leader is a dictator, that's a pretty high bar to set. It is thus, I would imagine, easier to make everyone hate an external force. So,
no question.
So how easy? And then think of like fast food companies, and they talk about their advertising and they use the color red and blah blah blah, and everyone's like, they're so good. And it's like, yeah, but they're also tapping in to a 4 billion-year-old system that likes salt, fat, and sugar. Like, they didn't invent that, true. Right? McDonald's is so elite. Not really, man. It's just bacon. It's just what it is. How deep?
Bacon in a milkshake.
Exactly. They didn't do that. They outsourced that to Mother Nature. How deep is that reptilian part of your brain of fear, of tribalism, of they don't look like us? It's a pretty low bar to hop over. So you might have middle America saying, I don't support the military. All it takes is one traumatizing 9/11, which in the grand scheme of things, I mean, full Dr. Strangelove, I mean, what was that, 3,000 people out of 300 million? What is that, 1/100,000th of the population? In terms of these people that think like this at the top, that was an acceptable loss. So my answer to your question is, how do they get a military up and going, a big attack, and then whoever doesn't join, just go, yeah, well, we're out of troops, so we got to use drones. And if you don't like the drones, then you should enlist so we can have more people. Oh, Ed's back. So that's my 2 cents on that is, a psyops and then automation. Now, I don't know if that will work, but I don't put it past them to try. Oh, here he is. He's back.
I had Wi-Fi problems.
Wi-Fi problems. Is that code? Is that code for the G-men are at the door?
They're here.
They're here. They're blinked. Okay, yeah, blinked twice. But yeah, that's I think that they're gonna. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's moral. I don't think it's ethical, and I don't agree with it. But if you put a gun to my head and said, "What is the current administration or the deep state or whatever you want to call it?" They're gonna go for a war and just try to wipe the slate clean. a war so traumatizing that you won't care about inflation or trans rights.
Or vaccine deaths.
They won't care. That's what I think they're
Yeah.
trying to do. You get a war going, nobody cares about if the Yankees are playing the Red Sox when we're losing 100 planes over Germany every day. It's just what it is. It's evil, but it works. It sucks the oxygen out of the room.
Yeah, this is so basically you're saying wag the dog.
The war is coming. And yeah, I don't really
Look, in my presentation a couple weeks ago, I predicted war. And if you think I'm crazy, Warren Buffett just sold all his Taiwan semiconductor stock.
Oh God.
And he said war was a consideration in his decision to sell it. And it's very rare. He bought it in the fourth quarter of last year. And he's a long-term holder. He doesn't flip. And he sold it in the first and second quarter of this year. So he's out. He bought $4 billion and now he's out. And he said war was a consideration. So if you don't have to believe Dr. Malone and I or you, Warren Buffett is worried. And he might have some more intel than we have. I don't know.
Money talks.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, but if you flip that, that creates all kinds of business opportunities.
Correct.
I have a colleague that has launched a new co to create an entirely U.S. manufactured PC, which is almost impossible to do currently. That's it. It may have a positive aspect in terms of repatriation. Not that I want to ever justify war.
Yeah.
No. I mean, after the war is over, those of us who are left, it'll be a renaissance. But I do not want to go through war. So hopefully we can stop that with the Grand Awakening. But it's beyond my control.
Well, another reason to support Bobby.
Yeah,
I'm on board with them. I'm on board with them. I mean, why not? The guy that gets up and openly talks about like the Bay of Pigs and the fog around his uncle's assassination. That's balls of steel, man. That ain't bluster. You're getting right up to the demon's eyes and just sprinkling holy water in its face, and you're going like, do something. I'm with it, man. I mean, kind of it'd be cool to just have my podcast and get bombed and everyone would go, well, that's what he got for supporting Kennedy, and that would be a cool way for me to go out. But I'm on board with them. I'm 1,000% on board with. I really am though. I really do mean what I said. I've been very open about my support for Trump, but I'm going full in on RFK Jr. I really do. I think he's got a bone to pick, and rightfully so. And I don't think he can ethically not run, and that is something I admire. Is that he's doing it because he knows he has to. So that's my pitch for Bobby.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, gentlemen, let's wrap this up. In the description is the book Cause Unknown, not Died Suddenly, and Lies My Government Told Me, as well as y'all's Twitters, your Substack, all that good stuff. Mr. Kennedy, if you are watching, please come on my podcast. I'm going to continue to politely harass you.
He will be at Miami Bitcoin Conference. Just FYI.
Well, I'm not allowed out of New England because of the brightness of my skin and my susceptibility to sunburns. I've been to Miami once, and it was for a medical school interview, and I did not fit in there at all. So if he wants to come on my podcast, I'll come down to Miami. What do I care? And Ed Dowd's currently being held hostage by a group of FBI hostage rescue team people, and I doubt he's going to make it through the day. So Ed, it was nice knowing you, and I'm sorry for that. And Dr. Malone and I, we are both PSYOPs agents for the federal government, and I hope we can put that to rest.
Yeah, well, George Webb would concur with
that. And so many others.
I am a Fed, guys. That's it. If I was a Fed, my podcast would be so much more successful. I wouldn't be on Rumble. I'd be on YouTube.
If you were a Fed, you'd have like a $20 million contract, and everybody would be promoting you on the mainstream media.
I'd be on every night show. I'd be making soulless jokes about shit no one cares about. I'd be like, talk about those anti-vaxxers, and everyone would cheer. Instead, I'm doing legitimate interviews about the military-industrial complex. And that is why I will be ostracized into obscurity. And if I'm lucky, I'll die in the street like a dog. And but it's more fun to do it this way.
It's the awake component is about 20 to 25% of the population. And as far as I'm concerned, that's good enough size for a market.
That's good enough for me, man. I've lowered my sights from biggest show in the world to can it pay my rent? Like, I mean, I've lowered my bar. Ed, what were you saying?
One of the great things about I mean, there's been a lot of bad things that have happened, but one of the great things is meeting new people who have the same values. And it's been awesome meeting everybody in this movement, and it's just growing, and there's an awareness, and it's a real care for humanity. It's not this I'm on the left or the right or the blue or the red team. It's like, look, we have to end this nonsense. The administrative state and the fusion between capitalism and government has rendered a vaccine that was put into everyone's arm, and that it manifested into complete evil. And it was always there for a while. We just didn't see it.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that. Is in the opposite side of the darkness it's comforting to see so many people stand up and do the right thing and to drop all the bullshit and say this is wrong and this is right. And it does start to make you think if that's the purpose of this whole experience, is to be put in between a rock and a hard place and see if you can make the right decision. I mean,
hey, I just got a ping. I think it's ONS, is the Office of National Statistics in UK. Confirms 47,719 COVID deaths among the vaccinated in England.
Jeez. 47,000?
And better, if you're going to round, it's 48.
Good Lord.
This is UK data, correct?
Yep, UK data. Yeah, so
wow.
I think we can definitively say that the vaccine does not prevent that.
Yeah. Well, that would be racist and anti-science of you.
Yeah.
And so for that, I'll have to ban you from my podcast, Dr. Malone. Unfortunately,
I'm so sorry.
This was a long time coming. Your anti-vax nonsense has gone on long enough.
Yeah. Well, if you're gonna ban him, I want to be banned too.
You can't be banned, Ed. You're also a Fed. We're all Feds. Slava Ukraini. Honestly, what I've taken away from this is invest in Pfizer and invest in Raytheon, or expect to be hated. We can't have both, man. Become a demon, or yeah. But gentlemen, Tommy, how come your podcast? Tommy, how come your podcast doesn't grow? I don't. It might be because I ended a podcast with Dr. Malone and Ed Dowd, telling everyone to invest in Raytheon. You know, there are consequences to actions, and sometimes words come out, and I see them come out, and I just want to grab them and pull them back, but they're already gone. So, yeah, I don't know. Invest in the military-industrial complex. Maybe we got to stop worrying and learn to love the bomb. But
so
I'm kidding. Do the right thing. Be optimistic. Keep fighting for freedom. It's the good fight. That's the humor. Guys, go grab the books. Go follow them on Twitter. And yeah, gentlemen, any closing thoughts?
Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you guys again. It's been too long.
You as
Hope
well,
to
sir.
see Ed in Maui. There's all these rumors about another set of Maui rallies, but the deadlines keep getting postponed.
It was supposed to be May, but I'm hearing July is coalescing. So hopefully I get to see you and a lot of my friends soon on Maui, where I have to travel no more than 30 minutes to see everybody.
Well, lock it down, because it sounds like the 4th International COVID Summit is going to be held in Romania, in the world's 2nd largest building. And wow. They want it to be it's 2nd largest to the Pentagon, I was told. The optics are amazing. It's an amazing palace. Why it's in Romania, I have no idea. But we got to get these dates locked, because there's Romania, and another one is going to happen in Sao Paulo, and another one in Australia. So I look forward to seeing you there.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Tommy.
I would like to preemptively thank Ed for flying me out to Maui. So thank you, Ed. And
careful what you wish for.
I will 1,000% go, man. I'll go. I don't care. What do I care?
We have nefarious ways.
We do. Mr. Ed Dowd, Dr. Robert Malone, Thank you so much. We got to wrap this one up. I'm trying to close the Zoom meeting. It's not letting me. Guys, please go into the description, grab the books, follow them on Twitter, follow them on Substack, all that good stuff. Mr. Dowd, Dr. Malone, thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. Guys, thank you for watching. Take care. Much love.